Hold on there. Is Brook getting another flashback? Are we gonna find out that Gonko is Brook's long-lost secret daughter? Because that's very much what it seems like right now, and I'm over here preparing myself for Daddy Piece 2.0 because if Oda is diving into yet another flashback for Brook this time, it could actually be one of the most heartbreaking and insane reveals in the entire story so far. And it all of course begins with these flashback scenes that we got in chapter 1149, where we see Gonko, one of the Holy Knights, having a sudden memory spring up after she launches Gaban off a tree branch here in Elbaf. Because something about Colin calling out for his father triggers this suppressed memory where we can see this girl who has hair very similar to Gonko screaming for someone she calls father and who looks a lot like Brook and talks a lot like Brook. Now, I have a lot of questions right off the bat here in this panel. Is this Gonko herself? I mean, it could be, but it could also not be, because in the next panel we see what appears to be a much younger version of Gonko right here. So is this Gonko's older sister or something? Because if that's the case, then this person they're crying out for would be Gonko's father. Are you seeing this the same way that I am? There's just so much to break down with this, but if I had to pick one, I'd say that Brook is Gonko's father and that for some reason they're calling out to him here. And pretty much all that we know about Brook's life really before joining the Rumber Pirate crew is that he was part of the military of some mysterious nation or country. So maybe she's crying that he's leaving for battle or sailing off for sea, but before we get into more speculation here, let's first look at the second piece of evidence that we can see, which is Brook with this little girl who seems also very likely to be Gonko. And our favorite musician seems to be cheering Gonko up by telling her about his dream to become a pirate. So I'm really curious at this point, what do you think about all this? Do you think that Brook is already a pirate at this point, or is he about to become a pirate, or a crazy third option that he was a holy knight who wanted to become a pirate? What? Okay, very much unclear at this point, but let's get back to the main idea here. Are Brook and Gonko related? And there are some major questions about the timing of these events and how she could even be his daughter while still being so young today, but let's just assume that this is Gonko for now and that, would be the same one that we see in the flashbacks here, because this is very much what everything seems to be pointing to. Now, Brook is talking to a little girl somewhere with a lot of music, and we already have seen Gonko geeking very hard about music and Brook's music particularly. So it does seem to me like Gonko might have lost her memories or got her memories wiped some point in the past, including those that have to do with this musical island. Maybe her memories were wiped when she became a holy knight, or maybe it was a whole Sabo situation where she got amnesia, but now that she's with Brook, she seems to be regaining some of these lost memories and possibly even remembering that Brook was her father in this very moment, trying to run towards him. Of course, we do have to consider some other possibilities for this relationship too. Like, it's entirely possible that Gonko had a mother and father who died, and then Brook came into the picture and just met Gonko this one time, or like a Shanks situation. It is of course still really early to tell at this point if there was more than that, since we just see them interacting here, but it could also be a Kuma and Bonnie situation where Gonko's parents died and Brook basically took her in. Which, I will be honest, I feel like if Brook had had a real or adopted daughter, like, why didn't we hear anything about that at this point? But I also wouldn't put it past Oda whatsoever, given how long it took for us to learn anything about, let's say, the Windsmoke family or the Shimotsuki family being a thing in the story too. But since these two are now seemingly reconnecting and starting to remember each other, I'm now very much fully strapped in for the Brook and Gonko flashback that we never knew we were getting. So come on, just hit me with it, Oda. Alright, this has the power to be incredibly impactful to the entire story. Like, we just saw in this chapter that Imu has taken control fully of Gonko, but what if this connection between her and Brook can be a possible way for Gonko to break free from Im's control? And this could happen through the power of music, because as we've seen throughout One Piece, music has the power to literally move the soul, and especially Brook's music, since he has also soul-related devil fruit powers. Now, Elbaf has been very heavy on the theme of love, with that being Gaban's whole deal, and even his father-son relationship with Colin, and even Summers, but there are still some serious questions that we have to ask, like, what would the timing for all of this even be, and what would have happened to little poor Gonko? Let's dive into the first question here. We do know that Brook is around 90 years old at this point in the story, and the Rumbar pirates were all killed over 50 years ago. So even if Brook was a pirate here when we see him with Gonko, which again doesn't make too much sense because he tells her about his dream to be one, that still means that this was at least like 52 years ago or something like that. So how would this be the same Gonko who looks like she's only maybe at most like 20 years old here. And while I do think I have a few answers to that very question, and it all ties into what actually happened to Gonko after this meeting with Brook. And the first very easy answer here would be immortality. That has been another huge reveal in Elbaf and Egghead Island, so of course it's possible that Gonko somehow gained some form of immortality very similar to what seems to be going on with the Gorosei. Because in case I need to remind you, we basically already know that the Gorosei have stopped aging. I mean, just look at Saturn here from God Valley looking the exact same as he is today, and he was even the same age when we saw him 200 years ago when the Iron Giant Emeth first attacked Marijoa. So for all we know, there could be something very similar going on here with Gonko, where she was taken by Imu and then made some sort of pact, or, got some power that gave her eternal youth or just stopped her aging altogether. But the way that I see it, this situation can't be as simple as just that. I mean, just remember that Gonko is a holy knight, and none of the other holy knights have appeared to have the same no aging thing going on that the Gorosei have. Just look at Garling, for instance. So what makes Gonko special here? And to be fair, there's always been something really strange about her. Like, she's the only holy knight we've met that doesn't have a saint title in her introduction. There were also some scrapped art concepts from Thriller Bark where Oda had designed a very similar looking character to Gonko who looked more like an actual mummy. Which of course is double interesting because it's the very same arc that Brook was first introduced as well. So there's even more connections, and all of this just kind of sets her even further apart from the other introduced holy knights because they all do seem to be aging just regularly. I mean, Shamrock looks the very same age as Shanks, and we do know that Garling has aged drastically since God Valley. So if Gonko is the only one here not aging, there must be something extra unique about her and something extra special that makes her the vessel for Imu. And this actually brings up a few other insanely interesting possibilities here. Like, maybe she's literally just an avatar for Imu themselves, like an extension of Imu that isn't really an individual anymore. Kind of like how Moria could control his own shadows. I mean, that's one way that we can make sense of Gonko seemingly not aging at all in over 50 years and haven't forgotten all about her past, but if we really look into it, there are two other ideas that could explain why Gonko is so young right now and how she lost those memories. Because just think back to the first time that we ever saw Imu. Where was she going? Well, that was this giant freezer that still no one has ever explained so far. So what if Imu is actually keeping people in here, kind of like a deep cryo freeze, just how Moria did back on Thriller Bark, and then wakes them up when he needs more holy knights? Which sounds crazy, I do know, but it could absolutely explain why Gonko is the way she is. Like, if she was frozen for literal decades, then that would explain why she lost some of her memories, and I can barely remember what happened yesterday when I wake up this morning, so imagine being asleep for half a century. Yeah, you'd probably have some memory loss as well. And the holy knights being kept in a deep freeze state could also explain why we've never seen any of them before this point in the story. And so I actually really love this idea of the whole freezer full of soldiers thing, because it would mean that we might see more great warriors from way in the past join the final battle here that could tell us so much more about what was going on before in the ancient history. Like a real battle royale with some of the most broken fighters from the One Piece history. However, there is one other option that we can't forget about, because if you think back to Egghead Island, the concept of cloning was brought up once again and reintroduced to us. I mean, we had Stussy and also the Seraphim, who were genetically engineered clones. So there is also a smaller possibility, I think, that Gonko is actually a clone of a real person from the past, which means that the clone version of Gonko could just finally be awakening some memories from her lineage factor that she never even knew that she had. We have actually seen something like this from, for example, the Seraphim, where the S-Snake one here had a similar affection for Luffy as the original Boa Hancock. But then again, it also seems like Vegapunk and Mads came up with this fairly recently after Brook, already was in a Florian Triangle, so that doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. Nonetheless, these are the options that I see for now, but really, I think the immortality contract with Imu would be the single most likely one. Hopefully, we're gonna get some clarification about this in the next few chapters, but all of that brings us back to the fact that something happened to the little Gonko that we see in the flashback here, and I do feel like the most obvious conclusion is that Brook is Gonko's father. Very clearly, Oda at least wants us to think that, but their home was somehow attacked. Maybe Brooke was away at the time or fighting in the battle, but Gonko most likely lost her mother and maybe her sister, and obviously Gonko wasn't kidnapped at the exact same time because we see her with Brooke in the second part of the flashback too. Is this the same place and island as the first flashback, or did Brooke and Gonko escape to a different island? I could kind of see that. If they were really going after Gonko, then it does make sense that they might chase her to another place. And was this musical island then attacked as well? I mean, honestly, I do think it would make sense since Brooke also knows about the Holy Knights somehow, so he must have interacted with them at some point in his past life too. Now, of course, Brooke could have just been a family friend who took in Gonko after her home was attacked too, and then maybe Brooke just lost the battle against the Holy Knights when they came and tried to kidnap Gonko. I mean, the idea of having an adopted daughter and then losing her really fits the entire Bonnie and Kuma parallel we have going on, and might be easier to explain why we've never heard of Brooke having a daughter before. Then again, he has not shared a lot about his past whatsoever, and if he thought that his daughter was taken and would at this point realistically be dead 80 years later or 60 years later, I mean, that would explain why he would never bring that up, right? Or to again talk about the other possibility, maybe Brooke was himself a Holy Knight, which would be insane, who was part of this group that attacked Gonko's island, but then eventually left because he wanted to become a pirate instead. I mean, just saying, it is an option, an insane one, not that likely, but it would be the coolest, I think. And sticking with the entire Holy Knight attack idea, I can see this whole battle going on with the musical island obviously losing the fight against the Holy Knights, which then leads to Gonko being captured, and it's not like we haven't seen this play out before. The Holy Knights choose to host their freakish tournaments or hunting party on God Valley, and then that island got completely wiped off the map. We also know that the world nobles love to kidnap people just like they did with Bonnie's mom Ginny, so altogether, if I'm gonna lay out what I really think happened, then it might have gone down like this. Something happened to Gonko's mother and father, maybe their island was attacked, so then little Gonko came to this island where Brooke is, but was eventually kidnapped anyway. And somewhere in there, Brooke faced off against some of the Holy Knights, which is how he actually learned about their existence. And that then led to this interaction here, where Brooke is talking to Gonko. And that might not be exactly how it played out, but that kind of makes a lot of sense to me right now, though I will say Gonko being Brooke's lost daughter that he thought was just dead would be so powerful. But then we still have to ask why. Like, why would the Holy Knights attack Gonko's family, whether that's Brooke or not, or the island? Well, maybe there's something very unique about her that they specifically wanted to get rid of or get for themselves. I mean, Gonko does have these crazy different colored eyes, so maybe that has something to do with it. Or another idea I had was that maybe Gonko is actually from the Three-Eye tribe. I mean, have you ever noticed that we don't really ever get to see the middle of Gonko's forehead? So maybe she doesn't just have two different colored eyes, maybe she has three eyes and we just haven't been able to see the third one yet. Or of course, maybe these different colored eyes are just straight up related to Emu, the possession, like one eye is Emu's eye, and that's kind of how they can control her. Or again, maybe there's the entire zombie, you know, being stitched together thing going on that we know from Thriller Bark. But enough about eyes, let's bring this back to Brook. The skeleton man is obviously not three-eyed, but maybe he married a woman from that tribe and they had baby Gonko. Or of course, very possibly there might have been some other reason that we just don't know yet about. But let's circle back here to what this means for Brook and Gonko's future now. Because with Gonko regaining some of her memories, it did seem like we were about to get a real breakthrough. She was running towards him, like Brooke saying something, but now that Emu suddenly took control, the chances of that happening suddenly got really slim. I mean, Emu seems like they're ready to unleash some crazy power onto Elbaf here, and we don't know exactly what that means yet. We do know though that they do want the giants fully on their side right now, so I can't see them totally wiping out everyone here, but they do have to do something, right? Like something really big. Maybe burning down the tree on top of the school and library, or killing some of the giants, which means that the Straw Hats should need some way to stop Emu here. I mean, I personally really like the chance that everyone just loses here and the Straw Hats have to go through a sort of new time skip where they recover and train to get stronger and learn this ability to actually deal with the Holy Knights and Gorosei. And I've always been on board with this. I love it. But if that's not gonna happen, then someone will have to stop/save Gonko, right? And again, right now it does seem like her best bet would be her connection with Brooke. I mean, could he play some music for her and that would be like triggering something inside of her which lets her finally take back control from Imu? I could absolutely see that happening. For sure, Oda loves the power of music. Admittedly, that could be the end of Gonko at the same time because like we saw with Saint Saturn, Imu can completely destroy and suck the power from their closest subordinates, and right now Gonko does very much seem to be part of that group. But at least it would save Elbaf and, you know, the Straw Hats. Then another option is that Luffy, Loki, or Scopper could unleash some absurd haki that breaks Imu's control here. I mean, it certainly seems like supreme haki does affect Imu, so that could be another way for Gonko to come back to her senses, though at the same time something was probably special about that haki that Joy Boy used as well. And if all of this happens though, and Gonko does regain control plus get some of her memories back, could we just see a situation where she becomes an actual ally here? I mean, I know we're going a bit far, but just asking the question. I mean, you do know we do this every single arc, but Gonko for Straw Hat, anyone? I mean, like having Brook and his daughter reunited and a powerful ally from the government would be kind of cool. Or how about another option? What if you join the channel's official Patreon and join the crew? I mean, nothing can top the incredible perks that we have for you there, because the instant you'll join, you'll get exclusive access to bonus videos, early chapter reactions, channel artwork. So if you want to support the channel and what we do here, go check it out for all these cool perks. And we have a free newsletter weekly that covers everything going on in the One Piece world, anime, manga, live action, everything you need to know for free, so you can just join it for free for just that perk. All right, with the bills being paid, moving on, we do actually have one thing that I'm really happy about with all of this, because it does seem like we will one way or another be learning a lot more about Brook, who he really is, and his backstory. And I will say he's honestly the one Straw Hat we know pretty much the least about in terms of their actual life growing up. Again, everything we know about Brook is basically from those couple of months or weeks that he was a pirate. I mean, even during Thriller Bark, he didn't have any major character arc whatsoever. His main goal was just to get his shadow back so he could go and find Laboon again. So I'm personally all on board with learning so much more about Brook as a kid and like his life growing up, and seeing more of his journey to becoming a pirate and who he might have been in his past life. I think that would make him so much more of a good character, because honestly, he hasn't had any real character development ever since we met him, like especially not after the time skip. He's done so little throughout the entire post-time skip, aside from his top tier work, I will say, in Whole Cake Island. Yeah, give us more Brook, like make him a fantastic character and give him a decent fight too. It's about time, I think. Which, by the way, means that if we were to get all of that for Brook, then there's also still hope for getting the same treatment for characters like Chopper or Jinbei or Frankie, who've all also been a little bit stale in comparison to some of the other Straw Hats, especially post-time skip. Frankie could, for instance, really use some love as well after basically doing nothing during Egghead Island, which would have been so great for, you know, all the tech stuff going on there. So if Oda is spending more time now fleshing out Brook, which I love, then I'm over here hoping too that we will get the same thing for other Straw Hats that don't get as much focus usually. Shoot, I mean, maybe we get a full baby Nami backstory and who her parents are as well, since we don't know anything about her true origin as well. It's kind of like what we got with Sanji and Zoro, where they had a pretty simple backstory originally, but then we found out in the new world that no, they're actually part of important big families like the Germa Kingdom and the Wano heritage and nobility, so please count me in for something similar for Brook, Nami, etc. And going back to the skeleton here, there is one other option I've kind of hinted at throughout this entire video, and it does sound really crazy, I know, but there is some really strong evidence that Brook might just straight up have been a Holy Knight himself. I mean, for one, it would explain how he met Gonko, but let's really look at this. We know he was part of some strong military force, that his, you know, noble style of talking and clothing kind of fits the Holy Knights. His sword style is also very high class with fencing, so it's not exactly out of the question at all that Brook used to be a Holy Knight who left to become a pirate. Maybe that's why the Holy Knights possibly attacked his island as a consequence. But this is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to talk about, like with this theory, and if you really want to understand the implications of that, you should check out that video right here. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Thanks to all of our fantastic patrons right here. Your name can be right here too. And with that being said, I will see you in the next one.